Hey everyone, today I'm going to be going through my pastel eyeshadow palette collection. As you guys can see, I have a few palettes that I would say are pastel. You guys voted that you wanted to see this video next, so if you want to see me talk about my pastel eyeshadow palettes, just keep watching. So I have 9 palettes here to go through. We have a big palette, the Morphe 35i. We have Pistachio from BH Cosmetics, their Sweet Shop collection. We have Menagerie Cosmetics Pastel Pup. We have Huda Beauty Pastel Rose, Huda Beauty Pastel Purples or something like that, Violets, I'm not sure. We have Colourpop in a Trance, and the other tie-dye palette, actually that's in a Trance, that's Aura. Now I'm all over the place. I also included the Colourpop Land Candyland collection palette because most of those shades are pastels as well. So I'm going to be going through these, talking about them individually, letting you know what I think about them. And if you guys want me to do a video comparing all the pastel eyeshadows I own, including like individual ones, let me know, because I'd definitely be down to do a swatch comparison video. So this is what they all look like with natural bedroom lighting, no flash, and then this is with flash, just so you guys know. The first palette I want to talk about is the Morphe 35i. This was limited edition, but they said that they'd be bringing it back eventually, so I have no clue when they'll be bringing this back. But it is a stunning palette. Morphe is hit or miss for people. For me, I typically love their formula. There's only been 1 or 2 palettes from them that I personally can't use, which would be the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Volume 2. For some reason, those shadows do not work on my eyes, as well as like the fall palette, like 35F or something like that. The greens in there were horrible, but this palette's stunning. You do have a pressed glitter, which, you know, we're not really about that, but it is pretty. It's just not, it's not a formula that is eye safe, and I mean, I just personally don't need it. It's still pretty. It's not the best pressed glitter I've ever seen, but it is pretty nice. You have a good variety of mattes and shimmers. A few of these shades, like this one, is more so, if you've tried the Colourpop Super Shock formula, it's like that, so it's more of a sheer topper, but it's still really, really pretty. It's just a shade that I would personally use over top of another base just because it's more sheer. You get a white, almost like pale tone, and then you have some darker shades. There isn't a black, which I'm personally fine with. I don't use black eyeshadows typically, but I like that this has a variety. Like, you have pastel yellow, you have a pastel green, you have pastel teals, you have a pastel blue, you have pastel purples, and then you have like this pastel like yellowy peachy, and then this like pastel orange, pastel like pinky red. They're stunning, but then you also have like gray tones in here as well, so I think it's pretty unique in that sense. You then have more of those like Super Shock type of formulas. They're really pretty. It's just a palette that I need to use more. I really like those toppers. I kind of want to do a cut crease with this and do like a colorful like crease, and then do a cut crease and put one of the like, or maybe multiple of the Super Shock formulas on the lid. I think that would be stunning. I do really hope they bring this palette out again like they said they would, because it's stunning and definitely a really good one. For the record, this palette doesn't come with a mirror, which is typical for a lot of Morphe palettes, but that being said, still like it. It's a big palette. I'm usually not a fan of bigger palettes, but this color story does it for me, so I'm happy with it. Next, we have Pastel Pup by Menagerie Cosmetics, which is an indie brand that I personally really like. It does come with a mirror, but we're just going to cover that up with this other palette. So you get 3, 6, 9, 12. You get 12 eyeshadows. You have a white and a black, which is nice because that means you can lighten or deepen the eyeshadows as you wish. It's all matte aside from this one shade. It's stunning. It's this like really pretty blue icy color. It's honestly so pretty. Their formula for that, look at how stunning that blue is. I love it. I do wish they would have done like a little bit of a bigger palette, just because they could have added the other like metallic shades like that, but even so, I still love this palette. I like the colors you get. You get a purple, you get a pink, you get a like reddy color, you get an orange, a yellow, a green, a like tealy green, a blue, and then you get like a bluey purple, which I personally love these. The quality is amazing, and it's a really nice palette. The artwork is stunning, and the brand is actually really, really nice as well. So I'm really happy with this palette, and I would definitely say it's one of my favorite pastel palettes out there. Next, we have the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop Pistachio palette. Now, this I wouldn't consider a full pastel palette, considering, as you guys can see, lots of those shades are not pastels, but these two shades here are pastel-y shades, and the shade Dessert I would count as kind of like an icy light green, so I would personally consider them pastel, but this is definitely not like an overall pastel palette. But I do really like these two like lighter eyeshadows in this palette. I definitely think the quality of this palette's really good, and I hope that BH comes out with more shades like this. I just wanted to mention that one in case you were looking for any sort of pastel palettes and you already own this. The next pastel palettes we have are the Huda Beauty pastel palettes, the Pastels Lilac and Pastels Rose. These palettes are stunning. First of all, the packaging's stunning as well. They do both come with a mirror. These are a bit pricey in my opinion, but the quality is nice, so it is what it is. For the record, I did try the Pastel Mint palette from them and I hated it. I tried it twice, returned it both times because I just did not like it. I tried to love it, but I just didn't. I think that it just wasn't a good palette. These palettes, however, are stunning. I do wish that the metallic shades were more metallic. These are definitely more like sheer toppers. Once again, I would really like for brands to stop doing that. If I want a metallic, I want an intense metallic. Like, even for the inner corner, give me a light metallic, you know? Like, you can just see, like, those two swatches there. There's barely any pigment to it. I'm just not a big fan of the shimmers, but the mattes are really pretty. If you guys didn't know, purples are my favorite color, so of course I'm keeping this for the purples, but I do also like the peachy tones in the lilac palette, and I like that it does come with like a peachy shimmer, so you could do a peachy look with a pop of purple, or you could do a purple look with a pop of peach, you know? Pastels Rose is definitely more unique in my opinion. Like, it's not the most unique palette, but in my opinion for a pastel palette it is, because you have this beautiful pastel yellow. I love using this on the inner corner or like in the crease. Really love that. And then of course you have these other pastel shades. I do think that there are way too many shimmers in this palette. Like, I just don't think it was like necessary to have all these shimmers, especially when they are for the majority just super sheer shimmers. They're pretty, but they're just sheer. Those are the shimmers. As you guys can see, the only shade that has a decent amount of pigment is the yellow, and even then it's still pretty sheer. So overall, like, I don't really care for the shimmers, but the mattes are really nice, and I do think they show up a lot more pastel in person and on the lid than they do in pan. A palette that I really wanted to love, but I just don't, is the Beauty Bay Pastels Pressed Pigment palette. I wanted to love this. I tried so hard to love this palette, but it just hasn't worked out for me. It could be that my eyelids are just too dry for this palette, but no matter, I've tried this palette about 5 times on my eyes and it just will not work on my eyes. The eyeshadows don't show up, and even with like a white base, it just looks crumbly. They don't blend. Like, they're so stunning and I wanted to love them, and they actually swatched pretty well, but especially for pastels, they swatched really good. But no, like, I wanted to love it, and I've seen so many people do beautiful looks with it, but for some reason I just cannot get these shades to work on my eyes. So this palette is kind of a miss for me, which sucks because I really wanted to like it because it's affordable and it's beautiful, but so far it's not working on my eyes. I will try using it again once my eyes aren't as dry and let you guys know how it goes, but so far I'm not a fan of this. But I've seen so many other people do amazing looks with it, so I don't know, I could have gotten a dud, I don't know, but that's another pastel palette in my collection. A somewhat pastel palette is the Colourpop Candy Castle palette in collaboration with Candyland. this is a pretty palette, and as you guys can see, there are about 3 true pastel shades, which is Rainbow Trail, Cravings, and Candyland. I would definitely say, like, obviously this isn't an overall pastel palette, but it is an overall natural palette with pops of pastel, which is why I did want to mention it. And these shades are pastel. I'll show you the look I did with these. I really did. They're very soft, but they're not crumbly or anything, and they build up nicely, so I didn't really have an issue working with them too much. They do have to be built up, but I mean, they're pastels, and the rest of the shades in this palette are really good as well. And I mean, the packaging's cute, so I love me some pastel eyeshadows in other palettes anyways. Another pastel palette is Tokyo Harajuku by Nomad Cosmetics. As you guys can see, this is a very pastel palette. The top row, other than, of course, the dark gray, these are all pastel shades. They're really nice. They are a little bit sheer, but you can build them up beautifully, and they're not crumbly or anything. And then you also have these really beautiful topper shades that are a little bit pastel. I really like this palette. I think it's stunning. I think the quality is great, and it is an indie brand, and I like to support indie brands. Another somewhat pastel palette is the Sugarpill Fun Size palette. As you guys can see, there are probably like 2. The shade Twitch is definitely a pastel eyeshadow. It's like a pastel greeny teal, and then the shade Cheat Code is also a pastel. Overall, not an entire pastel palette, but slightly pastel, if that makes sense. And the packaging's stunning. Lastly, we have Colourpop Aura and Out and Colourpop in a Trance. These are their tie-dye collection sort of pastel palette. For some reason, the green palette is coming across darker than it is in person, but these are definitely pastel type palettes. Obviously, you have this darker purple, and like some shades are not completely pastel, like the shimmers, but the mattes are pastels, and I personally love them. I think that these palettes are stunning. I love the shades in them, which is why I added them to my collection. I wish that this had more mattes in it, because there are a ton of shimmers and sequin shades, but that being said, both these palettes do come with pressed glitters, which, I mean, I don't get use out of them, so I'm not sure why they always have to add pressed glitters, but it is what it is. I definitely would say that these are pastel palettes, and I'm very happy to have them in my collection. Plus, you guys know that I love Colourpop, so of course, when I saw them come out with more pastel shades, I knew that I wanted these really bad. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you subscribe, comment down below any videos you'd like to see me do. Go follow my Instagram and TikTok, make it by TashaXO, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.